Hello and welcome to the Arise interview, where we take time to reflect on the big stories from the news and on the fortunes and affairs of the world in an hour of conversation with commentators, analysts and thought leaders. I'm Charles Anjola. Coming up in the next 60 minutes, my special guest today is Rita Dominic, one of Nollywood's and Africa's best-known actresses, currently ranked as one of the top 3 female performers in the industry across the continent, who's won the African Movie Academy Award for Best Overall Actress and for Best Actress in a Leading Role. Not only has she opened up Nollywood to the world, she's opened the eyes of audiences beyond Nigeria to a new world of African possibilities, reinvigorating Nigerian movies and bringing them into the global imagination. And now she's got another exciting project, La Femme Anjola, a noir dark thriller in which she plays the femme fatale. The bewitchingly attractive Rita Dominic, coming up. Now, my guest today, Rita Dominic, is a true master of her craft. For more than 2 decades, she's been a staple in Nollywood, Nigeria's film industry, the most prolific in the world after Bollywood. In terms of box office returns and popularity, she's up there with the best of them, towering over the industry and infusing it with a kind of infectious juvenescence through her sterling performances. Where many of her contemporaries attract fans by the thousands or tens of thousands, she's got them by the millions. Just check out her Instagram, Facebook and Twitter pages to get a sense of her mammoth fan base. There are few in Africa who can boast of such a vast following. Entertainment desks at auditing houses on the continent will tell you that if there are 10 high-grossing films in Nollywood, then you can bet Rita Dominic has something to do with at least a couple of them. And now she's got another groundbreaking one, a totally untypical throwback to the film noir genre classics of 1940s Hollywood, which she, along with director Mildred Ngozi Okwo, have updated to the African realities of today. It's called La Femme Anjola. Take a look.
See, before all this wahala, I was a young Lagos big boy, dabbling in the pool of power.
19.
Whoa! And that thing is a movie! Yes!
Is it running around with this guy?
A beautiful and very patient woman. Better still.
Oh, so nice.
There's this joint called the Basement, advertising for saxophonists.
Are you having sex with Anjola?
Of course not. She's married to the boss. Oh, this is ridiculous. Come on. I just play sax here.
You're not playing sax. You're playing sex. S-E-X.
You are the one banging my wife.
This is
Listen to me.
You must.
I wish I could take risks and leave Odera to be with you.
What happened?
Odera got upset.
And he beat you like this.
So they rush me. Bitch shege come off from my body.
When I pay for a service, I expect delivery.
Do you know how we catch chimpanzees in Adamawa?
We can't be together.
It could be if Odera wasn't around. If he was dead.
I don't know. There's got to be another way.
There is no other way.
Looks absolutely brilliant, doesn't it? The Africa noir crime thriller, La Femme Anjola, which means the woman Anjola, in which my guest today, Rita Dominic, is the femme fatale. And I'm absolutely thrilled to bits to say that Rita joins me now from our studios in Lagos. Rita, how absolutely delightful to see you again. It's been a few years, but I've kept up with your career. But how nice to see you again.
Hi, Charles.
How are
Hi, lovely to hear from you again.
So let's get cracking right away. Lovely to see you. Now, throughout your career, you've been very successful, as we all know, from the 90s through the noughties. You've starred in some of the most well-received movies, but now you've got involved with a sort of Hollywood neo-noir thriller with an African twist, a sort of update of the film noir classics of 1940s Hollywood. I mean, where and how did that idea come about?
Well, for me, I believe that if you're an artist, a true filmmaker, you want to try out all the different genres, of filmmaking, everything that has to do with art. You want to, try your hands at it, which is what Mildred Okpo and I, who's the director and my business partner and co-producer of La Femme Anjola, decided to do with this film. When we first received the script, 4 years before we shot it, we shot this film in 2019, so we acquired the script, the rights to the script 4 years before. We decided that, look, this is a genre that is fresh. This is a genre that will be very intense. It's a genre that will be difficult to shoot. So we needed the right budget to do it. But we were really excited. I mean, we were excited enough to keep the script aside for 4 years till we got the right budget to shoot this film, So for me, as an artist, as a filmmaker, I just want to keep pushing the button artistically, creatively, just try my hands in different things. And so the same thing goes for my business partner, who's a director as well, Mildred Okpo. Yeah.
Well, thanks for that little introduction there. I mean, because I was reading rather curiously, you mentioned there that it took 4 or 5 years in the making. I mean, that's an exceedingly long time. I mean, I suppose you would say, and you hinted, that it's worth the time and the wait. But, I mean, what did you spend the bulk of the time doing?
So when we acquired the script 4 years before we shot it, we didn't have we needed to find the right budget to shoot this film, to execute it the way it needed to be executed, because anything less than that would have been doing a disservice to the story. So we didn't have the budget. We kept the script aside faced other businesses, other things, till we found the right budget. Luckily we found investors and who connected with the story, who wanted to come on this journey with us and invested in the project. And then we went on to shoot it in 2019. However, we were going to release it last year, but COVID happened, unfortunately. So we could not release it last year, and we've just released it this year in cinemas in Nigeria. That's why.
So, I mean,
but
And of course, having spent all that time raising the money, the coronavirus pandemic with all its restrictions gets in the way, didn't it?
Yes, it did get in the way, because we're doing further post-production in Paris. So obviously we couldn't travel. The director couldn't travel to meet with her editors and colorists and sound designers and all the rest of them, So that put a damper on the project, so we couldn't bring it out last year, which is why we waited for the pandemic, or rather the lockdown, to be lifted before we went further with the post, and we're able to bring it out now in 2021 to the audience, Yeah.
So what's the story about? I mean, I understand it's a nod to Hollywood and borrows heavily from the film noir elements of Hollywood's golden age of the 1940s.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So obviously, you know, film noir came about, I think, after the, you know, the drug era and the murder era and everything, and people started doing those films in Hollywood in the 1940s, and most of those films mirrored that period. Now, going further, and you know, it became more modern, so they changed the name to neo-noir. Now, what we've tried to do with our own neo-noir is to shoot the neo-noir genre of La Femme Anjola, but have Nigerian elements in it. So we like to say it's a neo-noir film inspired by not just Nigeria, but by Africa. So it's a film that people in Nigeria, even though the genre is borrowed from Hollywood, but it's a very Nigerian story. It's a story that every African or every human being really can relate to. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I trust the quality of your work, which obviously I've followed fairly closely over the years. But do you think you've delivered a film on the scale that you envisioned? Is it everything you hoped it would be in terms of production value?
Yes, I mean, I think that it's a film. Well, a lot of people have connected with the story. A lot of people have connected with the production, you know, in total. And I believe that it's a film that can compete internationally. You know, I think that we have tried to cross our T's and dot our I's with this one. So, and the reviews have been great so far. You know, at the end of the day, I mean, it's an audience that will tell you, they will tell you how they feel about your project anyway. And so far, since we released it 2 weeks ago, it's been been getting very positive reviews so far. So I believe, for me, when we shoot a film, I just want a film that everyone, every race, a film that transcends race, a film that transcends tribe, a film that every human being in the world can connect with, which is what I believe that we did with La Femme Anjola, but still staying within the Nigerian context.
Yeah, that sounds jolly interesting. I shall certainly make my way to the cinemas to catch it as soon as I possibly can. But when people go to the movie...
I think it's the sort of thing you'll like.
Well, I'm pretty sure I will. I mean, let's face it, I can shamelessly say that I like everything you do. So, I mean, let's not kid around here. But when people go to the movies or the cinema to see you and immerse themselves in your performance, what do you want them to see? What do you want them to experience of you?
I really don't want them to experience Rita Dominic. I want them to experience the character. I don't want, like when I do or choose certain roles to play, I like to choose roles that are very outside the box, roles that are just not me, roles that when you beat it and turn it upside down, you don't see Rita in there. You know, so I just want them to experience the whole, like the story. I want them to connect with this character. I want them to just feel what this character is feeling and just be suspended, basically, and not just see Rita in there. You know, yeah, that's what I hope to achieve.
And I think that's a fairly that's a truism when it comes to thespianism, as it were. I mean, you want the people to be drawn to your character, but then obviously you are connected inextricably with that character. So people will always see you and see the character. But let's go to the very beginning of it all. Tell us a bit about how you got into acting and what decided you to stick with it as a career.
Anyway, let me start from the very root. This is what, I mean, I've always acted. I started acting or performing from a very young age of 5. So when it was time to study it in university, my family close friends, they all knew that this was what I was going to do, and they supported me all the way. Now, after university studying theatre arts, I wanted to work in Nollywood, which was called the Nigerian movie industry at the time. It was not called Nollywood. And I remember I came to Lagos and I ran into Basoj, Baswane Taria. He gave me my first role in Nollywood, and that first film, the title is My Guy, you know. And after that, I went on to do other films. Obviously, you know, I had my ups and downs and all, but I think the passion is what kept me. That's why I always tell like young actors, like, look, make sure you have a passion for acting, because look, the money at the beginning, it's nothing to write home about, but it's your passion that will see you through. So in the process of still like following your passion and finding, you know, like having another source of income, you know, so find other sources of income while still pursuing your passion, because you, honestly, at the beginning, you're not going to get paid that well. You're not going to get paid well, you know. So I think it was just the passion for the arts that just drove me, because really, I came out of my mother's. My mother always told me that I came out of her stomach like that, like lights, camera, action. When I was a child, or when I was an infant or a baby, I would watch everything on television, whether I understood it or not. And it was from that time that she realized that this child had this thing for the arts, you know, and she nurtured it, but unfortunately, she died a very long time ago, and you know, she didn't eat the fruit of her labor, so to speak.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm glad that she put you on the trajectory that you're on. Of course, my question was going to be that in a continent where people, parents especially, are quite conservative and have some stereotypically negative notions about their children ending up as entertainers, particularly girl children, it clearly panned out rather well for you, didn't it?
Yes, which is why I think that for me, and in all honesty, I'm really grateful to my parents. It was different because both of my parents were medical people. My dad was a medical doctor. My mom was a chief nursing officer. And guess what? All the 4 children in the family told the science line, you know, and they didn't force us. I think they believed in every child following their passion and just supporting each of the children, you know, in whatever passion or whatever it is career they wanted to follow, career path they chose, you know. So I was lucky in that sense, you know. In fact, I remember in secondary school, I was the vice president of the dramatic club and vice president of press club. So I started performing, from an earlier age, and then when I went on to secondary school, I went to Federal Government College, Ikodekbane, Akwa Ibom State. So I used to perform a lot on stage, act on stage, just perform generally. And I was my SS2 or SS1, that my friends and I would have discussions about what we'd study in university. And I always said, I want to study theatre arts. And I remember my friends would look at me and say, where do you want to work with that? And honestly, I never saw anything wrong with saying I wanted to study theatre arts, because it's what I always knew, is what I wanted to do. I didn't care, you know, what happened after university. You know, I just wanted to study arts. I just felt like I had this calling to tell people's stories. I had this calling for my being or body to be used as a vessel to tell other people's stories. You know, I just felt so strongly about it, and I stayed true to the course, and here I am today.
Well, as I mentioned before, we're hugely glad that you stayed true to it, because I was going to ask you if you ever wanted to do something different, or were you always and ever the storyteller, the communicator, and the thespian? But you've sort of answered it. And of course, you've been in Nollywood now for at least a couple of decades. I mean, I'm just wondering whether you would like to meet Hollywood or Bollywood, but let's keep that thought. We'll have to take a break and we'll come back for it in a minute. You're watching The Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our chat with Nollywood's top-rated actress and producer, box office hit Rita Dominic. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Enyugolu. My guest today is the popular Nollywood actress and film producer Rita Dominic, whose performances have been quite simply dynamite, helping to fuel a cultural explosion that continues to resound across Africa today. If the continent had once been written out of the story of contemporary art, dwarfed by the likes of Hollywood, that has begun to change thanks to the likes of Miss Dominic, who is helping to sow the seeds of a new African revival with a legacy of well-crafted, well-acted films that are giving vent to the almost limitless creativity of Nigerians. Image by image, she produces hybrid movie making at its best, combining Western materials with an African imagination. Today, they've become some of Nollywood's biggest exports and have become big business, commanding big sums of money by African standards. But perhaps more importantly, artistically, they've become some of the continent's finest cultural achievements.
Makinde, don't come back here without the signed authorization. This company is finished if your presentation fails.
Madam, my appointment was for 4:30. Is the minister still not ready?
Sorry, sir. The minister was just called to the villa.
And you could not let me know, seeing that you told me 4:30 p.m. earlier?
Is that not what I'm doing now? Telling you.
Let me inform the minister you're here.
Let me surprise him.
I had an appointment.
Yeah. With the government minister. Huh. You'd have stood a better chance of seeing the Pope.
There was a crazy female receptionist.
Some word of advice, stay on her good side.
God, yes,
This is
Hey, mind your language. Mind your language with me. I'm a married woman, my friend. Excuse me, oh. The minister has closed for the day, so go back home and come back tomorrow.
My husband warned me about this Abuja.
See the minister tomorrow, make your presentation and close this deal.
Yes, MD. Mr. Makinde is sure.
Your appointment has been moved to 4:30, sir.
Are you serious?
Mbano. I checked from my church to show you that I'm not serious. Is this okay?
Good stuff. And the brilliant actress, film producer, Rita Dominic is still with me from our studios in Lagos. Thank you very much indeed for staying with us. I mean, just looking at the meeting, looking at the previous one, La Femme, Anjola, I mean, looking at so many movies that you've done, what would you like to do as an actor that you haven't already done?
I'm still very open to playing characters that push me. I think I'm only just scratching the surface. There's so much more within this being that, you know, hasn't been put out there. So I'm still very much open to doing stories that I connect deeply with, playing roles that I connect deeply with. So I can't like pinpoint, like say to you, oh, I want to, there's this character I've not played, I want to play, there's this character I want to, no, I'm just open to doing good work, open to having that very strong connection. For me, if I have a very strong connection with a character, then I'm going to play it, you know, so that's it for me, basically.
Right. Well, let me put it this way then. You've been in Nollywood now for at least a couple of decades. Would you like to meet Hollywood or Bollywood, perhaps?
For me, I want to do work that can travel. I want to be that actor that can work anywhere. You know, I want to be that actor that when any producer in the world wants, thinks of a role, and they think of, Rita Dominic reading for a role, not necessarily having to move to Hollywood or not necessarily having to move to Bollywood. I just want to be an actor that cuts across internationally, that even if I'm home and a producer or director in the West has a role, they think of Rita Dominic and they send it to me to read for. Do you understand? Does that make sense?
It does actually.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
It does make sense.
That's basically what, that's basically what I want to do with my career as an actor. I just want to be able to work anywhere in the world. So that's why I'm particular about my body of work. I want to do body of work that everyone in the world, by the grace of God, or by the powers that be, the universe, they can see, and when they see the work that I put out, or that we put out from my company, and if it features me, they can decide to, acquire my services as an actor for a particular role. Yeah.
Well, quite. And you've been talking quite a bit about your acting, which obviously you're very big in that area, in the acting profession. You've pretty much done it all, really, in terms of the kind of the broad circuit of roles that you've taken in Nollywood. But beyond starring in dozens of movies, you've also moved into producing and dabbled a bit in directing as well. Which of those three do you prefer doing?
So actually, I've not dabbled in directing yet. I've only been producing, and I co-produce with, Mildred Okwa. We own the company, the Audrey Silver company. We own it together. So I've only produced. I've not directed just yet. For me, if I'm ever going to direct, I would like to do a course in it before I go behind the scenes to, tell a story, visually or whatever. I'd like to do a course in that. So I've produced, I've acted. However, I'm first and foremost an actor. Yeah, I love being different people. I love seeing the world through the eyes of different characters that I play. It's such a joy, and it's just a feeling that is indescribable, So I like that. And for producing, I like the fact that I'm behind the scenes, I'm putting all these things together, and it just becomes one. It's, I don't know, it's very satisfying to do that, to be able to start from point A, then to point B, and then to the final point, which is the pre-production, production proper, and post-production, and then you finally bring it out. There's just something very satisfying about managing all that and putting all that together and bringing it out to the public. So for me, I just like all the aspects of filmmaking, basically. However, I'm first and foremost an actor. Yeah.
Well, yes, I do. I can relate to you talking about the different aspects of production. It is a truly fascinating process. But beyond that, of course, along with it, I should say, comes the fame and the fortune. And of course, most Nigerians, and without being rude to most Nigerians, most of them feel as insignificant as a speck of sand in a sandbox. What does it feel like to be a speck of sand that actually stands out in that sandbox of 200 million sand particles, if you like?
Pressure. It's a lot of pressure. There's this saying that an actor or a filmmaker is as good as their last job. So when you stand out like that and you do a project that stands out as well, the pressure is mounted on you to do better than that project, the next time. So it's a lot, it's a lot of pressure, but it's a good feeling that, you're creating these things, you're putting out art that people love, that they want to watch, that they lap up so much, and that they want to see the next thing you're doing. It's a good feeling and it's very encouraging. However, it is quite pressurizing. I will not lie about that. Yeah. So.
No, absolutely. And they say in the business, not so much the movie business, but I presume it kind of relates to it. In journalism, we say that you're only as good as your last story. So to that extent, things sort of, you've got to always be the next challenge. I mean, I'm reminded of people like Michael Jackson after Thriller. I mean, I didn't envy him because the next thing had to be bigger and better. So you're always your next challenge, really.
Yes.
And of course, in the meantime, other people in the industry are also doing things and putting additional pressure on you. But please stay with us. Rita, we would like to talk with you a little bit more if you'll bear with us. You're watching the Arise interview. Okay, I'm actually told that there's a bit more time. I thought I heard 1 minute, but it sounded like 4 minutes. And I know we've been concentrating a lot on your career, Rita, as we should, because that's what most people, celebrate about you. But there is so much more to you, isn't there? I mean, there's your personal life, for instance, which I understand is a closely guarded secret. I mean, how much of that do you want to share with us?
None. None.
Okay, well, I suppose that answers it. But peripherally, though, without...
Okay, peripherally, I'm happy in my personal life with someone that is in my personal life. So that's all there is to it, and I'm leaving it at that.
Absolutely, we quite respect the privacy of that, and the fact that you want to also keep that person, whoever they are, as a closely guarded secret. But we know what you're working on at the we know what you've just finished working on, which is the movie that we played the trailer, La Femme, Anjola. What else are you aiming for? I mean, because I know that you tend to sort of build things, and there are lots of things in the woodwork before you then pick the next thing that you're going to do. What's new and interesting?
So there's this film I'm shooting in Port Harcourt. It's not my film. I'm featuring in it. We've shot like 85% of it, so it's remaining like 15%. It's a very, very compelling story. Like when I read the script last year, and I got to the last page of the story, I actually shed tears. And it's difficult for an actor to connect so deeply with characters or with the story. And I got to that point. It's about this young boy in Port Harcourt, just living in abject poverty and just trying to, just make it through life, basically. But he's very ill, so that is a challenge on its own, but it's a very compelling story. We've not finished shooting it. I'm looking forward to going back to finishing that story, and moving forward, I have another script. I think I'm going to be shooting at the end of April, towards the end of April, in the federal capital. It's like it's a comedy, but it's a comedy drama, dramedy, yeah. And from Audrey Silva, this year. We plan on shooting another feature film, and then next year we're going to be doing a lot of series, yeah, from the Audrey Silva company.
Okay, well, do stay with us. We've now got to take that break that was promoted a bit early, but always jolly nice talking with you, and would like to talk with you some more. You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our chat with one of Nollywood's best, Rita Dominic. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview, where we speak to the newsmakers as well as ordinary people doing extraordinary things around the world and featuring the voices at the heart of the stories. I'm Charles Anyegolu. Now let's head back to our conversation with my guest today, the effulgent and brilliant Rita Dominic. She's an actress and a film producer of enormous professional stature who's made and is making her mark on the modern world of Nigerian and African movies. She's part of a generation of African filmmakers who've brought their art to international audiences, monuments to the legacy of centuries of African creativity, becoming a source of pride and self-respect for the continent, giving hope and helping Nigeria mark its place in the modern world. If this is Africa reclaiming its place in the pantheon of global creativity, then Rita Dominic would have to be one of its greatest symbols. And the enormously talented Rita Dominic is still with me from our studios in Lagos. Thank you very much indeed for staying with us. And I was just going to ask you what the state of Nollywood is today. I mean, it became ascendant globally at one stage, lots of attention and interest internationally, lots of government support during President Obasanjo's time, for example. Nollywood even helped this country to become the biggest economy in Africa by growing its GDP. Is that still the case today? Is there much government support and much growth in the industry?
I would say there's much growth in the industry, production-wise, technical-wise, and with individual investors, not necessarily the government. You know, I think with the emergence of platforms like T-Voids and, you know, S-Voids and platforms as those, I think that some investors have seen that they can actually invest in this industry and make their money back, because at the end of the day, for a businessman, what matters most is how do I make my money back, you know. So I think that with those platforms and then with the emergence of cinemas, which we didn't have many, like I've been in this industry slightly over 2 decades, and when I came into this industry we didn't have cinemas. So with the emergence of cinemas, streaming platforms, TV on demand platforms, people are seeing different ways, and even cable TV, people are seeing different ways of recouping their money. So in that aspect, it has grown immensely. And technically, you have more people who are seeing the need to go and do courses professionally, either within the continent or outside the continent, or even within the country, to bring that knowledge and invest it back into growing this industry. So in that aspect, it has grown. And I believe that, yes, we'll have a long way to go. I mean, Nollywood is what, about 20-something, 30 years old. We still have a long way to go. But I believe we're on the right trajectory, like we're on the right path in that regard. So yeah.
Okay, well, that's good enough for me. So let's return to that which commands the most attention, which is your sterling career. What's the secret to becoming a successful actor? I know you've been asked that loads of times, but someone said that great acting and movie making is 10% inspiration and 90% perspiration. Is that a sentiment that you share and agree with?
I definitely agree with that. Maybe not 90% perspiration, maybe 75% perspiration. For me, look, to be able to interpret roles and all these characters and make them as believable as you can, I think that you must acquire knowledge. An actor must be intelligent, at least, like acquire knowledge, because to be able to churn out these films or be these roles or be these characters and make them as believable as they are, you have to be intelligent enough to know what each role requires to make them as believable as you can for the audience, you know. So I don't rest on my laurels. I see the need to constantly acquire knowledge, to read, to study. During the lockdown last year, I used the Helen Mirren acting masterclass as a refresher course, you know. So I'm open-minded that way, because you see, you realize that human beings we're very colorful, we're very layered, and if you're open-minded that way, I think it's good for your art as an actor, you know. So you get whatever it is, whatever information you're feeding off from the universe, you get all that information into you put all that information into your art, into creating, So I don't rest on my laurels. So I think that's why maybe by the powers that be or the universe, I'm still, what's the word? I'm still here doing my thing, basically.
Well, I think that's very good advice. Acquire as much knowledge as you can, which in and of itself is a good thing in any case. So that is your advice, your message to the despairing ones, because there are so many Nigerians and Africans who see you and want to do what you do. I mean, so many of them hanging on in the hope that someday someone will notice them and turn them into stars.
And then for like the young ones, I tell them, look, first of all, concentrate on your art, build your art, and then the fame will come. You have a lot of young people who just want to be famous just for the sake of being famous, And for me, that doesn't last long. I think it wanes after a while because, okay, the fame comes, but after that, people ask, okay, so what else? What is there? What else is there to you? But I believe that if you concentrate on your art form or concentrate on yourself as an actor and just, build yourself, the fame will come. Yeah, so concentrate on your art and then fame will come, not the other way around.
Okay, well, that's a good piece of advice. So where do you think your place is today in Nigerian society as an accomplished actor, filmmaker, and as a woman pushing forward regardless of what obstacles appear in your way?
I think that for so many young girls, especially being in a society where women have been told they can only do so much, I think that I represent, just like me and a lot of other women, represent people who have just gone on to prove society or the world or the powers that be wrong, that regardless of my gender, I can achieve so much. So a lot of young women who are aspiring to be filmmakers, who are aspiring to do, to do great things in whatever chosen careers that they've chosen, whatever path that they've chosen for themselves, they can look up to me and decide and take from my strength and say to themselves, oh, Rita Dominic and and the rest of my peers, they've done this thing. They didn't rest on their laurels. I can tap from their strength. I can learn from, take from their wisdom or whatever and apply it to the path that I've chosen. And yeah.
Well, Rita, it's been brilliant talking with you. We've got about 30 seconds or so before we have to end the program. So briefly, would you then say that you are remaking the world through your art, or at least attempting to do so?
I am attempting to do so because I believe that media, art it's a very powerful tool. You can use that to project the image of the society that you want. So I'm using that to create that world or push the world or change narratives, So, and I want people to understand and realize how powerful art and media, how powerful television is. The West used television; they still use it they use it positively to project the West the way they want it to be projected. So okay. I want people to understand that we can do the same thing as well.
Rita, I want to thank you exceedingly for being our special guest today. Rita Dominic, the enormously talented actress, talking to me from Lagos. That's it for this edition of The Arise Interview. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja and Lagos, bye-bye, and thank you for watching.